Premiering in 2006, Fantastic Four: World's Greatest Heroes was Marvel's third stab at adapting the team into animation, but this one took a rather unique approach. Instead of going gritty or overly serious, it leaned into what makes the Fantastic Four, well, fantastic. Sci-fi adventure, wacky concepts, and a family that bickers almost as much as they save the world. Each episode was mostly self-contained, dropping the team into new dimensions, facing cosmic villains, and dealing with all kinds of disasters. From Mole Man to Super Skrull, and to even someone like Ronan the Accuser, who you've probably seen in Guardians of the Galaxy. This show was just taken straight from the comics. A lot of different storylines. There was really no overarching storyline. Yes, you had some recurring villains here and there, but this show was just your typical Saturday morning cartoon, although rather unique compared to other shows that came before this one. And one great example of this would be a show like X-Men Evolution, which is an iteration of the X-Men where it focuses on the younger days of the X-Men, showing us in their youth where they're not fully at their prime yet compared to how they're portrayed in other iterations such as the early comics and even X-Men the animated series from the early 90s. However, X-Men Evolution was able to go on for multiple seasons until the ending of season 3 came and then the show was canceled. But I mentioned X-Men Evolution because while that show showcased younger versions of the X-Men characters, I believe Fantastic Four: Earth's Greatest Heroes was attempting to do that very thing with introducing us to younger versions of the Fantastic Four. While a concept that sounds fantastic on paper, no pun intended, unfortunately compared to X-Men Evolution, this show was, well, let's just say very short-lived and sadly not given a proper chance compared to its predecessors. And I actually think that's quite a shame because after watching the series, or at least most of the episodes, I think this show actually had a lot of potential. I think the show deserved to have multiple seasons to it because this was something rather unique and just something we really hadn't seen before with the Fantastic Four in general. And this is a show that I've seen in recent time. I didn't really watch this as a child because unfortunately this show, like I mentioned earlier, the episodes were aired out of order, and it wasn't one of those shows that just had multiple reruns for its episodes. It just wasn't one of those shows. And after watching it, I think this show was actually a pretty good representation of who the Fantastic Four are and how cool they actually can be to the general audience. And it's such a shame how underrated the show was because they actually, I think in my opinion, they got the whole family dynamic right. I think they got the tone right with the show. And I think the show offered a very unique animation style that you don't really see in a whole lot of animation shows, especially coming from Marvel. And they made a lot of bold, creative decisions with the show, like how certain characters like Doom are represented in the show, and how someone like Mole Man, the Super Skrull, and even someone like Namor, who, in my opinion, this show gave him the best representation that character could have possibly gotten. And no, Black Panther 2 does not fucking count. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, folks. In this video, I'm going to be covering the overall story, or kind of lack thereof, and the overall animation style, and just why this show needs to be given another look, another chance, in fact. But before I continue on with this retrospective of this great animated series, I want you guys to go ahead and hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe to the channel because you are not going to want to miss out on this certified banger content. So without further ado, let's get back to the video. Now, I mentioned earlier that this show didn't really have an overarching plot or a continuous storyline that spread throughout the episodes. In fact, most of the episodes are very much self-contained. You could honestly just watch any of these episodes out of order, or just pick one out of the bunch and you'll be caught up with everything, because that's just how this entire show was made. It was just made from the perspective of, if you were to watch any of them, you weren't going to be lost. You were going to know exactly what was going on, because this show just didn't follow the formula a lot of modern superhero series lean into, where there just isn't some grand season-long villain arc. There's no post-credit teases or a slow build to a final boss. Instead, this series just plays out like a collection of mini sci-fi adventures, where each episode, it just drops the team into a brand new mess altogether. And you'd have episodes where it's like a time travel paradox, a body swap with the Super Skrull, or Dr. Doom swaps his mind with Reed Richards. There's a nanotech outbreak, a Mole Man trying to take over the city multiple times. And honestly, as chaotic as that sounds, I think that's where the charm comes in for this show. That's where it lies. I think the show just thrives on its episodic nature. You never knew what kind of wild situation they were going to face, and but you knew that it was going to test them, not just as superheroes, but as a family. But here's the thing. It's not even the villains or the special guest characters that appeared every now and then, and we're going to get into that in just a second. But it's just the team as a whole. The whole family dynamic is actually what brings the show together. That's what makes it unique compared to any other animated show from Marvel. And the Fantastic Four are presented here perfectly as Reed's the super genius who overthinks everything and Sue's the one holding everyone together, and Ben is the one who is the roughhouse, yet he's the heart of the team, and Johnny is just your typical rambunctious teenager who just starts shit with everyone. He's funny, he's witty, he's a flirt, and he just brings that natural chaos, that necessary chaos that the team just desperately needs. But with all those different personalities meshed together, you get a pretty chaotic team that actually has some sort of unspoken loyalty amongst each other. And I think that's what makes this iteration of the Fantastic Four great, is that it's just honest with itself. It knows what it is. These characters know who they are, and they kind of just own up to it. And you see in a lot of the episodes that, yes, they struggle a lot, but at the same time, they're willing to work out their differences and overcome their own adversities to work together to defeat the big bad of the episodes. And honestly, I'd say with a dynamic like this, it's rather unique compared to a group like the Avengers, who are just basically co-workers that often struggle with each other, but they get along. But there's not really that family dynamic that there is with the Fantastic Four. With the Fantastic Four, I think there's more of an emotional weight attached to each of the storylines and to the different struggles that they face together as a team. I think their family dynamic is really what hones it in for this show. I think that's what makes it stand apart compared to any other Marvel show that it has some sort of teamwork dynamic. It wasn't just about surviving the big bad or saving the day. It was mainly just the team members or the Fantastic Four surviving each other, working out their own problems to overcome the evil that was surrounding them or within each storyline. But speaking of the many different storylines that the show offered, there was often some recurring characters such as Doctor Doom, who is actually given a rather unique take in the show, a rather bold one in fact. And speaking of bold, I really like this bold decision to make his costume like this. It's not the typical cape-wearing looking tyrant that you see in other iterations of Doom. Like, this one is like, he is packing that sauce. He's really packing that heat. And in this version, he's very cold, calculating, and he's terrifyingly efficient. And more than just any other supervillain, he is somebody that mirrors someone like Reed Richards in the worst way possible. I mean, yes, he's very brilliant, but he is basically everything Reed Richards could have been, where he's just basically an obsessive asshole who's always 10 steps ahead of everybody else. But in this version, he's actually less theatrical compared to other iterations of Doom. In this one, he's very strategic, and I think that's what makes this version of Doom a lot more dangerous compared to other iterations of this character. And I'm actually hoping that a movie like Avengers Doomsday will actually take a lot of inspiration from this show, or how they portrayed Doctor Doom, at least in this sort of way or these sort of aspects. And I know some people that look back on the show, they think, Doctor Doom was a little weird in this series, or like his portrayal was a bit weird and unlike anything we had seen in other adaptations of this character. But I'm really hoping that they'll actually do something very similar with this version of Doom and kind of take some of those aspects and put it into Avengers Doomsday. We still don't know how Doctor Doom is going to be in that movie. There's a lot of things we don't know about that version of Doctor Doom that's going to be taken on the Avengers, the X-Men, and even the Fantastic Four. But I think if they take certain personality traits from this version of Doom, from the Fantastic Four, Earth's Greatest Heroes, I think that the version of Doctor Doom that we're going to see in Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars and possibly other movies, I'm really hoping they go that route and kind of make that version of Doctor Doom stand out compared to other live-action portrayals of Doctor Doom. But not to get too off track, yes, I actually do think there was something worth writing home about with this version of Doctor Doom in this animated series. I think they at least made a bold attempt at making something new with this character and just kind of making him a little bit more of a compelling villain than just a theatrical villain, your typical bad guy of the week. But to move on from Doctor Doom and to briefly mention other characters that made special appearances throughout the series, Super-Skrull actually makes more than one appearance in this animated series, and he was one that was actually what I would consider a formidable foe to the Fantastic Four. He's able to basically absorb and adapt to other different power sets. He's basically the Fantastic Four combined into one being. He has all their power sets, and he uses it against them a couple times, but I think he's worth mentioning because There's really not other great adaptations of Super Skrull other than maybe Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Definitely not in live action. I don't even think Super Skrull was even in the live action movies. I know the Skrulls were in the live action MCU films, but other than that, not much from them. Even if he was, or like a version of Super Skrull, it wasn't accurate to the comics or one worth writing home about. In this version, I thought he was pretty cool, and even to the point where, you know, he's making multiple appearances and even working with other villains like Ronan the Accuser. I thought that was very interesting. And speaking of Ronan the Accuser, yes, he actually appears more than once throughout the series, and he's actually pretty cool. I like this version better than I do the one from Guardians of the Galaxy, at least the first movie. That one isn't shit compared to this one. This one is actually terrifying. Right? Not even necessarily terrifying, but he at least is someone you could take seriously and somebody that actually poses a threat to the Fantastic Four. And another particular character that actually posed a threat, or at least in one episode, emotionally speaking, was Namor, who actually steals Sue Storm in one of the episodes, and the Fantastic Four have to fight to get her back. And Namor in this one, he is actually, I'd say he's more akin to the comic books compared to any other iteration of this character, especially the live action one, which is completely a bastardization of Namor. And no, it's not pronounced Namor, because if you actually know a little bit about the character of Namor, how he's created, if you read his name backwards, it spells Roman, and there's a pretty good reason for that because of how ambitious this character is and just how fucking cool he is, right? Namor in this particular episode in this animated series, he actually makes a whore out of Sue Storm at the very ending of the episode, and I'll give you an example of this.
Promise, you are an impressive human, Susan Storm.
Great,
What?
Were you actually serious about staying in Atlantis?
Maybe.
Yeah, fuck you, bitch. No, I'm just kidding. But I think this is one of the few versions of Namor where they actually kind of get his rivalry with Reed Richards down correctly, because there is that tension there where it's like Reed's contemplating whether Namor's, you know, if he's the shit or not, if he's going to steal Sue Storm. I think they nailed that perfectly. And this is why I think this version of Namor is probably the best one we've had in quite some time. And I think he's probably going to be the best one for a very long time, because live action's not doing him great. It's not doing him justice. And I don't even care if they try to do that storyline in the MCU. It's not going to hit the same like it does in this series. And speaking of not hitting the same, the very last one I'll bring up, because I know there's multiple special appearances in this show, but the one I think is worth mentioning is this portrayal of She-Hulk, which, in my opinion, best version of She-Hulk we've ever gotten. Yes, that's right. I fucking went there. She is the best version of She-Hulk we've ever gotten in any sort of media. And this is actually one of my favorite episodes, for obvious reasons, right? No, but seriously, this one was actually my favorite because I liked how they kind of play on the whole what happens when one of their team members is no longer a part of the team temporarily. Because in this episode, Ben Grimm loses his powers and he can't really do much to help the team, so they have to find a temporary replacement until Ben Grimm gets his powers back. And they have, like, you know, people that try out for the fourth role as the fourth member of the Fantastic Four. And you see multiple characters like Squirrel Girl and plenty of other characters. But She-Hulk's the one that makes the team. And, dude.
Case.
All right, fine. Show me what you got, but it better be cool.
How's this? Hot stuff.
My hero.
I'ma eat it.
Yeah, I think that much just speaks for itself. The She-Hulk TV series from 2022 could never. But that's going to really do it for this section of the video. I know there was other characters that made some brief appearances, or even, you know, some guest appearances, such as Hulk and Iron Man. They were pretty cool in this series, but I thought the other characters were definitely worth mentioning compared to Iron Man and Hulk. Those are the ones that made the biggest impression on me. And it's not to say that Hulk didn't make an impression, or even Iron Man, but I think it's worth mentioning someone like Namor, She-Hulk, and even Dr. Doom. I think those versions of the characters, this sort of portrayal, I think was done perfectly, despite what others may say. I think they had a rather unique edge compared to other iterations of these characters, or lack thereof. But to move on to my next point before we conclude this video, the most notable aspect of this series is the animation style. I think this is worth mentioning because this was an animation style, that sort of anime-like style was something that hadn't really been done with Marvel animation. You know, it was Marvel animation, I mean, it was great, but it was kind of basic compared to what they do with this show. And I think it's unfortunate that this series often gets overlooked because I think it has the most distinct visual style compared to any other animation from Marvel. And the character designs, the Fantastic Four costumes, I think had a very distinct look and is one that I actually remember the most compared to any other version of these costumes or the character designs. Like, I could easily look at these characters and their designs and instantly point out that it's from this exact series. And what even gives it more of an edge is the Thing design, where he's got the spray painted 4 on his chest. I think that is such a cool look. It's one that I wouldn't even really think to consider if I were designing characters or trying to give them a fresh new look. Like, I think the artists really went all out with these character designs, and actually just they really utilize animation to the fullest, because I don't think these sort of looks would work in live action. Or at least with the Thing, I don't really think you do the spray painted 4 look on his chest in live action. But I mean, granted, it might work, but I think it works best in animation and really shouldn't be attempted in live action, which I don't even think they would ever consider that, but you never know. And something else that's worth mentioning about this series was the editing choices that they made, or the stylized editing, where it looks like comic book pages or comic book panels that you'd see if you opened up a comic book. I thought that was very distinct with the show. It gave it that sort of unique edge, a very visual spectacle compared to any other Marvel animated show. It's something that feels shameless. It's something that's very playful in the best way possible. And this is something that, granted, you may have seen in other animated shows, at least by today's standards, but I think this show really paved the way, just like leaning into its playful nature and really delving into the tone that the show gives off. And you can argue that the show is very flawed and maybe not memorable to you, but at least it owns up to its tone. It leans into its nature. And that's something you really can't say for other animated shows that come out today. Like, a lot of animated shows, they don't really have a unique visual style. They don't really have an identity. And if you don't get anything from this video, at least get the fact that this show had a visual identity. It was very shameless in the way it carried itself. But I think that's going to do it for this particular section of the video. And to move on to my very last point, the very last point I want to make is I think this show deserves a second chance. I think everybody who is a fan of the Fantastic Four, has maybe seen the recent Fantastic Four movie, Fantastic Four First Steps, I think should definitely check out this show. It's worth a watch, even if you can't really follow the storyline or just the lack thereof. I think it's just worth just picking out an episode and watching it for what it is, because you don't really see a lot of animated shows like this anymore. Shows that lean into its visual style, its tone, and make very creative, bold choices with characters and their designs. And just looking back on a show like this, it makes you wonder, like, why we can't have something like this again. Why can't, studios believe in their own products and actually just be invested in it? Or just having, animators and showrunners that are invested in the source material and that love it as much as the fans. It really makes you ask a lot of questions about why we can't have these sort of animated shows again. And granted, you may know the answer to that, and because that's a whole separate topic in itself. But it really makes you think to yourself, man, they really don't make shows like this anymore. I wish we could go back to this, where things just had a visual flair, a style, something that was worth remembering, something that, you could easily look at it and say, oh, it's from that show. But not to harp too much on nostalgia. I just think this show is definitely worth remembering. I think it's definitely worth a second rewatch if you've seen the entirety of the series. It's available on Disney Plus, and I think even some episodes are available for free on YouTube, regardless of what platform or streaming service you have. Just do the best you can to give this a second viewing. I think it'll be worth your time. And speaking of worth your time, there is one final point I want to make. It's more of a bonus point, in fact. I know a lot of other YouTubers have covered this, and especially sites have covered this particular topic, but this show actually had a canceled toy line that looked really cool, especially from the pics I'm going to show right here. I can't believe this got canceled, because I would actually purchase these if they were available. They look really cool, and I'm somebody that doesn't even really collect figurines. But I think this toy line was mainly canceled because, well, the show got canceled, and it was just a matter of poor timing. Not just to add on top of the episodes for the show airing out of order and just the overall awkward scheduling for the show. I think it was also a matter of the toy companies just not really, they couldn't see a justification for putting these out on shelves because they weren't competing with the likeness of, let's say, someone like Spider-Man or even a group like the X-Men. That's what I gathered from the brief research I did for this canceled toy line. Despite all that, one can hope and one can pray that maybe someday Marvel Legends will do their little take on Fantastic Four World's Greatest Heroes, or maybe just some other toy manufacturer that's really excellent at making figurines. Perhaps revive this canceled toy line, maybe do something with it, but granted, it may be far-fetched, but with the recent success of Fantastic Four First Steps in cinemas, this could be a possibility. There might be something to revitalize with this toy line. Perhaps garner more support for this. But that's going to conclude my bonus section for the video, and now I'm going to kick it off to you guys. What did you guys think of Fantastic Four World's Greatest Heroes? Did you ever watch it? Have you never watched it? Will you consider watching it after watching this video? And on top of that, did you guys agree with the points I made? Did you disagree? Do you want to see more retrospective videos like this one? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. And if you like what you saw, go ahead and hit the like button. Go ahead and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And make sure to share this video if you truly liked it and you truly want to see more videos just like this one. But with all that being said, folks, that's going to do it for today's video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.